Hello and welcome to the 126th episode of Fur, Fins, and Feathers. Today our guest is Tracy Gustafson of Seekonk, Massachusetts, who's going to share her love of goats. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you.
I am very honored to have you. Tell us about your affinity for goats.
We are honored to be here.
Thank you.
This is Rosie, Goat Ranch Seekonk. Ultimate Power is her registered name, and we call her Josie.
How old is Josie?
Josie is 5 weeks old. She was born on March 30th.
Wow.
Her mother is in the photo right here, and she's a very pretty girl. She's a paint. The color markings on her is considered a paint. And these goats are born anywhere from like 5 pounds to 10 pounds on an average. You do have some that are smaller and some that can be born up to 14 pounds.
Wow.
A doe can have, ultimately is 2. When they have 3, like she came from 3, she is now being bottle fed because it's easier on the mother to only have 2 and help her out by bottle feeding the 3rd one. And as you can see, she's thirsty. She likes to drink. What mothers do is touch them in the back end to let them know to nurse. Go ahead and nurse. The mother encourages by this touch right here with the mother's nose when she wants the babies to nurse from her.
How did you get interested in goats?
I'm not so sure about that. COVID made me think, what do I want to do when I grow up? So for the next 3 decades, I figured I'm going to downsize from horses to goats. So we started breeding goats, Boer goats. I didn't want to be tied down with the dairy goats at this point in time. Not that I can't expand down the road and go dairy, but right now these are meat goats, and it's spelled Boer, B-O-E-R, Boer goats. They originated in this country in 1993. They come from South Africa, and they began coming in Texas and in the warmer climates. And with that being said, it's a little bit of a challenge sometimes in New England, because for show goats, there's certain requirements. And one of the requirements that's a little bit difficult, we keep our goats inside in the winter.
Okay.
And we have it temperature controlled, so to speak. So that means under their tail is one of the checkpoints that they have to pass inspection, and they can't be pink. They can't be pale pink. They have to be 75% dark in that area. But with the goats being inside and not getting sunlight for the first few months of winter, mine are just starting to go out now, their tails do darken up there underneath. Their flesh under their tail does darken up with the sun.
Now these are show goats.
Correct. And some of them may not be show goats, but they stay in my herd, and they're fun to watch like a fish tank. You just watch them jumping around in the backyard and up and climbing on stuff like rocks, boulders. They love to eat pine trees. They love to get in trouble. They love to actually hang out with their dogs. They have dogs that are Great Pyrenees and Anatolian Shepherd mix that live with them to protect them. They're livestock guardian dogs. So there's 15 goats in our herd at this point in time. And yesterday we had 2 more babies born. This one's 5 weeks old. I have them from 6 weeks up until yesterday, 2 days old. And she went to her first goat show in Greenfield, Massachusetts, last weekend. And
how did that go?
We had a blast. We exposed her. When they judge, we don't expect to go out and win. We're using them like seminars. We want to go and meet people. We want to go and show our goats off, but we also are using it for training. So for us, it's like a seminar. and we go and teach them how to stand or stack like you would with the dogs. And they're similar to going to a dog show. And they have to groom them and be groomed, and they have to stand steady. And the judge comes and inspects their teeth and their bite like they would with dogs. They inspect their ears for the canal, because sometimes they have ear problems where the ear isn't exposed. It's kind of all like together, where they would actually have a hearing problem in their ear. And that is a big fault. Another fault actually is their teats. A doe, they call them fishtails. That's disqualification when two are stuck together. You ideally like them separate, so she's got 2 and 2 on each side separated. So she qualifies to be a show goat. Actually, last year her mother won the silver belt buckle at the series, because they have a series of, this year I think there's 14 shows in the series. And at the end of the series, the goats with the most points get awarded different prizes.
And are there any local in our area? Any local shows?
You know, I wish they were closer, but for me, 2.5 hours has been the closest drive. I go to Maine, I go to Greenfield, Mass, a plug-in for the Big E at Springfield.
That's a big event, isn't it?
We will be showing there at the end of the season. They are going to have a Boer goat show there. And I've gone to Kentucky, to the Nationals. And I'd like to travel more around the country in the future as my herd grows.
How do you prepare for a show?
Well, you see, every day is a preparation all the way to the show. It's kind of a lifetime with the food prep and how we feed them. They have 3 different stomachs, and their guts can easily be affected by switching feeds, sour food, and you can get them really sick. They are sensitive. They may look big and strong, but really they do have a sensitive side to them. And they can't have moldy, stale hay, moldy, stale food. Water has to be changed out twice a day is what I do. Ideally, they talk 3 times a day, a fresh bucket of water. Time consumption for me, I can't do that, but 2 times a day is what I do to change out their water. And food, they get grain. I have my own mixture that I put together between sweet feed, medicated pellets, corn, sunflower seeds. Calf manna has a lot of protein to put weight on. And we just mix all these blends, and then they have additives and supplements. And the supplements...
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
There sure is, to prep them for a goat show. If you want them healthy and to show and look their best, those are all of the fine-tuned
How does
things.
one groom a goat
for
a show?
You see, I was learning, and I'm still not really great at it, because my clippers and operator skills did not quite blend their hair on the neck, but you do shave their neck. You use guards or different blades for different layers of hair thickness, which is I'm learning. I'm still learning. This is a learning process, and going to be, like I say, the lifelong learning process for me. But you, like a dog, you would shave up underneath and under their face, get their head refined, and now when you start getting to the legs, they blow dry the hair and want it fluffed out to be cylinder-like for the legs to go up. And they want...
Very similar to a Bedlington Terrier.
Bingo. Exactly. And they want all... When we do show, we want her fluffy and her fur all blown out. And you want to sculpt them when you're cutting and shaving them in areas. If you see the top line is not straight, because you like a nice straight top line, maybe the rump's a little higher, you would shave a little bit more off the rump. If the front end where her withers are is a little taller, you look at it and eye it and sculpt it to your liking and see if you can get that top line nice and straight.
What is their longevity?
About 15 years, like a dog.
Okay.
Yes. And unfortunately, sometimes we lose them sooner because one of the biggest that I've heard, and I lost a goat at a year and a half old. He was my sire, my herd sire, and he got silent pneumonia. And that is one of the scariest diseases that here, I don't know if that happens all over the country, but or if it's just more prevalent in New England. That's something
What
I'm
about
going
veterinary care?
Well, that's a big thing because a lot of times Connecticut, Woodstock, Connecticut is Tufts University Reproductive Medical Center. So that's who I deal with. I have questions for, as well as local farmers. Local farmers stick together and help each other out as well with medical problems. Like yesterday, for example, when my doe was birthing, I called my buddy and we were talking it through as my doe was giving birth. And the second kid she kidded, the legs were tucked under and not coming out first. The nose was coming out first. So with that being said, I had to clear the airways to get it breathing. And then I went back in and I had to push her back in and feel for the legs and get a leg to come out so it was bent and we got it to straighten out. Once that leg was straightened out, the baby just came right out the canal.
And it's fine.
Absolutely fine. She's my pick for my new goat that I want to campaign next year.
So now Josie will be campaigned this year?
Yeah, for practice. Next year will be her probably big deal because she's small. When they judge, and it's obvious, when they're small, they judge by how big the brisket is, how long the loin is. They judge on size. If they're overweight, you can be faulted as well. But the bigger the better, so to speak. So you know if you're going to be competing against a goat that's like, 2 years old, well, you're really not going to place with a 5-week-old goat. But it's out for practice. Getting her to learn how to stand and stay. Getting her to learn how to walk and present herself.
It's very similar to a dog show.
Not any different. Not any different. And she's feeling comfortable. She's feeling very comfortable.
How does one become a dog? I was
Goat.
going to say a dog judge. How does one become a goat judge?
I think that's a wonderful question. I think if one wants to research Boer goats, start off with the American Boer Goat Association, ABGA, American Boer Goat Association. And that's where the judges, that's where my goats are registered to. There are 2 organizations. That's one that I chose to start with while I was guided along up until this far, and I've only been in it a couple of years, since 2021. And the American Boer Goat Association they host our nationals, and they put on many exhibitions and how-to on the computer that you can YouTube and look how to groom a goat, how to fit a goat, what the feeding program is, what the market's calling for, what the look of the vogue of this year is, what people are doing with their goats. And it's a very education. And also on Tuesday nights, podcast, 8 o'clock. Every Tuesday night, I can say I listen to it after because I'm usually busy now at 8 at night. But when I wasn't having kids, I was listening every Tuesday night to Boer Goat Nation. And it's a podcast. And the judges and auctioneers, because there's many beautiful Boer goat sales they have. And that is my ultimate goal, is to actually be able to go to a show and in the evening go to a sale, and it's an invitation, will be invited to a sale to bring your goat to the sale. And these people buy goats to enhance their herds. You always try to breed better. You want to breed up for better quality. When we're in the show ring with the judges, a judge might say, I have 2 goats here that are both equal for first place, but if I could change that goat So when the judge is telling you, if I could change that goat and have a wider rump, then you know what you're going to do is breed to a goat that has a wider rump. Her mother, we were told, even though she still did a lot of winning, nobody's perfect. So they would say, we wish she had a little more height in the front. So the sire.
There's no perfect dog.
Okay. So that when the judge tells you what they find for faults, they're not faulting your goat. They're just telling you, if you want to make the next generation better, this is what I see that would improve her look and style, is by going taller in the front, which was what we were told with her mother. So that's what we did with the next generation, the buck. He had a taller front. He was much more taller with his longer legs in the front. So we hope we offset that. You just try to breed up, try to breed better. And they have a lot of agriculture schools, which 4-H, FFA, Future Farmers of America.
I've had them on the show.
Okay, let's do it again. I need to learn more about them myself. And I need to actually...
Bristol Aggie is a fabulous resource, isn't it?
I had a man deliver me grain, and he graduated from Bristol Aggie, and he told me he was going to bring me there to introduce me to somebody, because he said they would love to work with and show my goats and learn how to do the reproductive system and so on and so forth. So yes, that is one of my outreaches in the future, that I am going to be looking into going to Bristol Agricultural School to introduce myself with my goats.
Do you have a little organization or friends or whatever in the area that you... What's going on?
We're having a little accident right here, but I did come prepared. Okay, she had to take a leak.
That's all right. We're fine.
And then what I want to do, though, right here is we'll do that. And I'm going to just squirt it right now. Oh, I can't get up. That's okay. We will wipe it up with vinegar and water in a few minutes.
That's fine. So we were talking about Bristol Aggie.
Yes.
And?
I would like to, I've never been there, but I would like to go there and, like I say, introduce myself to them and see if we can partner up and have them come out. Oh, and we're doing another little accident here. Goats will be goats. But that's par for the course. If I could get up a second, I could pick it up now, but we're just going to leave it, and I won't step in it right now.
You're fine.
I have papers
You're
over
fine.
there. And she's actually getting into trouble now. That's what goats do.
Very good. So you have about 15 goats?
Yes. And what's fun about it is just to learn how to brush them and bathe them. They need to be bathed 3 times a week to keep the parasites off them. That's a big thing, is parasites with goats, is you don't want them to have any internal or external parasites. And for some unknown reason, I'm just learning this, that it's a problem. It's a problem that whatever the worming medicines are that we're giving them, they're like resistant to those medicines, and I don't know why, but it's something that I'm learning. So I started switching up different ones instead of using one.
What about veterinary care?
Well, that's the...
Do
you
have a veterinarian that you work with?
I have several that we work with, and it's for different
Do they specialize in goats?
Yes, and that's the thing is like I say, Connecticut is the Tufts University.
Okay.
That's in Woodstock, Connecticut, and they specialize in the reproductive system and everything with medical care and surgical care with goats. And that's my number one. And then just some local vets that are actually canine vets will help me and give me vaccines for rabies. They do have their rabies vaccine since they go to different places. And one of the vaccines they need as a baby is CDT, and that's their tetanus type shot that they need. And they need that's a boot, and they need a booster with it.
Do they have to be health inspected before they go to a show?
Yes. They cannot cross state borders. So within Massachusetts, I can, I can get get travel and go to go to goat shows if I have one every couple of weeks. And if I want to go out of state, like let's say I want to go to Maine or Kentucky, there's a certain time frame, but every agricultural department is a little different in their policies. So some might be 60 days out, some might be 30 days out prior to an inspection. When I arrived in Kentucky last year through experience, we had to leave our animals in the trailer. We couldn't get out until they came to us. They examined the animals in the trailer before they even came off the trailer to go into the building. And then they examined your paperwork as well at the same time while they were examining your animals. So they got kind of double inspected. That was
Kentucky's a beautiful state.
It sure is. It sure is. Yep. And it was at the expo, at that horse park, that expo there, the exposition center.
At the Kentucky Horse Park?
Yes.
I've been there. It was gorgeous.
Okay. That's where I went last year. And hopefully she's a hopeful for next year to go.
Very
contender.
Good.
Yep. This is her debut.
And she's only 5 weeks old.
5 weeks old. Can you imagine that?
And she's a keeper.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you look for when you're going? What makes her shine?
Okay. Again, what I look for in a goat, and everybody's people's different, because you go out there and, like as a dog judge, if you see one breed of dog, sometimes you don't see 5 styles of the one breed. With these Boer goats, you can kind of see like 5 different styles in the ring at the same time of the one breed. And some people like taller ones, some people like shorter ones. I like them square, and I don't like them too short because the mother's bags from when the babies need to nurse are too low to the ground, the milk sacks. And sometimes too tall just doesn't look right to me. Some people have them with legs that are really tall, but in between the nice square look, a flat back, an elegant neck, that's what they look for, is an elegant neck on them, and the shoulder angle and the straight leg coming down off of the shoulder angle, and the same thing with the back hip. You don't want them cow-hocked, you don't want them sickle-hocked, you don't want toes pointing in.
It's just like going over a dog.
Exactly, exactly. One of the big things that they do, I didn't understand the terminology instantly, and it took me a little bit to figure it out, but the judges always take their hands and do the thumbs like this. They're measuring in between here and here on the goats, and then they'll go and measure the next goat, and they go back and forth to goats, and they measure with their thumbs. And one time a judge said, your goat is over-conditioned. And it took me a bit to figure out what the judge meant, but that meant my goat was too fat. That's basically the bottom line. It was over-conditioned. Last year I learned how to feed to fatten up for show. All my goats don't look like show goats. I couldn't afford them all to be looking like show goats by feeding more. But that's a delicate balance when you're feeding a show goat, again, because of the 3 stomachs, and they can get sick so easily if the gut is off with their fermentation, and they always need probiotics. That's a big thing. Thiamin's a big thing. Their body depletes from thiamine. And minerals. Our ground doesn't have enough minerals in it to support their bodies, and they need more minerals.
What about color? Color, any preference?
Well, here's a chart with many different colors on this chart here, and she's a paint. This is called traditional, is with a red head, white body. That is what the original Boer goats look like, the traditional.
So they have a standard.
Yes. And then all of a sudden, everybody started going with colors. And I think what I understand is that was kind of poo-pooed in the beginning. But now, everybody wants color, and that's like the top selling, is anything with color, anything with black. And over here, we have goats in pictures that are black. These are all of her relatives. And she's got black in there. There's black dapples. And at home we had a black born this year, and it looks just like the grandmother. And that's the grandmother that we have a black boy that looks exactly like that. And we just yesterday, the two that were born yesterday are dapples. They're red dapples, like this one right here, the red dapple.
Okay.
So we've got a variety of color now. I have a black-headed traditional, a red-headed traditional. The paint, there's two paints. I have a red one. So they come in a variety of colors. And
Their
like
longevity is about 15 years.
15 years, yes. And you know, they do make great companions. They make great, they are like a dog, they are friendly. They put smiles on your faces and they rely on you to take care of them.
Do they get along with each other?
It depends. Just like dogs, it depends. I have two girls that just want to keep butting heads constantly. So I have to separate them. You think he tastes good? She's just checking your leg out.
There she is. But, so they're like dogs again.
Mm-hmm. Like if you put two males together, some might get along, some might not. And you have to kind of watch them. And the same thing like with two females, with two bitch dogs. You don't, if they've one's in heat, you just got to watch them and see if they're going to get along or not. As a rule, they all should get along and have a herd leader, and now the bucks don't stay with the does. The bucks are separate from the does because otherwise they would be relentless and want to keep breeding with the does constantly, and that wouldn't work out too well.
So you separate them.
Yes, and just leave them together for a certain time for breeding. And I do live coverage. What's interesting to me, I don't want to say I'll never do it because I really have a curiosity to try once. But with everybody right now, the big, large farms are flushing goats. So last year when I did the circuit, the Silver Buckle Circuit, I'm learning and listening. And I thought that meant they were taking the babies away from the mothers. But finally I had to ask, what is flushing a goat? They go in and take the eggs out, the embryos. And then they put embryos in with the eggs, and then they insert them in a surrogate doe. So when you flush a goat, instead of, if I bred, let's say hypothetically, she was a breeding agent, we bred her with a live coverage, she would have 2-3 goats for kids. If I flushed her and got 12 eggs, 20 eggs, you never know. You could get 1 egg. You don't know what they get. But if you flush them, you can get 15 goats from this one in 1 year. So then I'm not so sure exactly why, all of the reasonings people are doing it. Probably for the market of selling goats. And for ennobling, because you know how you do championships with dogs?
Yeah.
These are called ennoblements. And so in order for her to get ennobled, she would have to have at least 50 of her own points. And then she would have to have 3 kids to have 5 points each, but one of them has to make up the difference to get to 100, because you have to have a total of 100 points. All 3 could make the difference to get the total of 100.
We're almost wrapping up, and I wanted to talk
Okay.
briefly about how can people come out to your ranch?
By calling the number and making an appointment. We're open Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 2 to the public by appointment. And come and see and volunteer, come play with a goat, bring a picnic and come and sit down and just enjoy and relax.
And you are in Seekonk.
In Seekonk, yes.
It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'd like to have you back.
Thank you. As she grows a little, maybe we can see her development.
That would be wonderful.
And thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. And as we conclude our 126th episode with Tracy Gustafson of Seekonk, it has been fun.
And Josie.
And Josie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.